Hey there, AP Seminar teachers. If you're looking at that fall calendar and trying to map everything out, you are in the right place. We're going to break down the entire first semester into a clear, manageable blueprint, really focusing on those core skills your students need to nail. So let's jump right in. So this is the big question, right? How do you take a group of students and, in just 18 short weeks, turn them into confident researchers and collaborators? It can feel like a huge, impossible task. But the great thing is, the AP Seminar curriculum is actually built for this. It's designed to build these skills layer by layer, and we're going to show you exactly how to make that journey feel totally intentional and, honestly, achievable. All right, so here's our game plan. We'll start with the big picture blueprint for the semester. Then we'll dive into 3 distinct cycles. First, laying that foundation, then deconstructing arguments, and finally, building the presentation. We'll wrap it all up by talking about the core proficiencies that are going to be your guide through it all, setting you up for a fantastic first semester. I want you to think of this first semester as a scaffolding process. Seriously, we are not just tossing students into the deep end here. Instead, we're building up their skills methodically, one on top of the other, moving from those basic foundational ideas to way more complex stuff. It ensures they've always got a solid structure to stand on.
And this cyclical approach is really the key. It makes the whole curriculum feel less like you're in a frantic sprint and more like a well-paced climb. Each cycle has a super clear purpose, and it builds directly on what came before. So by the time you hit winter break, your students will have this incredibly robust set of research and argumentation skills.
Okay, let's dive into Cycle 1. This is all about laying the foundation. I mean, before your students can even think about building a compelling argument, they have to know how to find and evaluate the raw materials, right? This first cycle is all about giving them those essential tools of inquiry.
So this first cycle usually runs from about mid-August to mid-September. The focus here is purely on the fundamentals. How to identify issues, how to find good information, and how to figure out if an argument is even valid. The 2 core proficiencies you're really honing here are understand and analyze context and evaluate sources and evidence. This is the absolute bedrock of the entire course. And we ground all this work in essential questions that really put the students in the driver's seat. Questions like these get them thinking critically, not just about the information they find, but about the whole context around it, and this is so important, about the perspectives that might be missing entirely. Now, a huge piece of this cycle is getting the vocab down, and the first big one is line of reasoning. We have to teach students to see arguments not as just a random pile of facts, but as a deliberate structure, like a path the author built to lead the reader somewhere specific. Getting them to trace that path is a skill they'll use all year. Okay, now we're ready for Cycle 2, where things start to build. Now that students have the tools to find and evaluate sources, they get to learn how to deconstruct arguments that already exist. I love this analogy. It's like an architect studying another building's blueprints to see how it works before they try to design their own. That's exactly what we're doing. So this cycle takes you from late September right through to the end of October. And you can see the concepts are getting more complex. We're moving into actually formulating arguments, citing sources the right way, and looking at competing perspectives. This builds directly into the proficiencies of understand and analyze perspective and establish argument. And the questions get deeper here too. Students are moving past just finding info and are starting to question its trustworthiness and think about the real-world impact of an argument. This is where they start asking that critical question. So what? Why does any of this matter? All right, another big-time vocabulary word for this cycle is counterargument. And this is a huge leap for a lot of students. It's the moment we teach them that a really strong argument doesn't just ignore opposing views. No, it actively looks for them, acknowledges them, and then responds to them. This is a total game changer for their thinking. Okay, and this is where you can have some real fun with it. A fantastic activity for this cycle is to have students analyze arguments from sources that are, well, anything but traditional.
Like, a rap battle. An assignment like this takes these abstract ideas, claims, evidence, line of reasoning, and makes them instantly relevant. It's just such a powerful way to show students that, hey, sophisticated arguments are happening all around you, not just in some dusty old journal, and you already have the tools to pick them apart. And that brings us to our grand finale for this semester. Cycle 3, building the presentation. This is where it all comes together. Students take every single skill they've built, inquiry, analysis, you name it, and they finally apply it to their first major performance task, which is a big team presentation.
You're going to be running this from early November right up until winter break, and it is all about application. The focus shifts to teamwork, presentation skills, and that super important process of reflection and revision. So, naturally, the two proficiencies we're zeroed in on are engage audience and collaborate. So the questions here, they get a lot more real-world and self-reflective. Students are now thinking about their audience, what they specifically bring to the team, and why revision is actually a good thing. They're making that final, crucial shift from just being consumers of information to becoming creators and collaborators.
And because this all ends with a presentation, the vocab matches that. We introduce performance-based terms like vocal variety. This is where we teach them that how they say something, their pitch, their pace, their volume, can be just as powerful as the evidence they're presenting. It's that final piece of the communication puzzle.
You know, I've been mentioning these proficiencies all along, and that's because you really have to think of them as your North Star. They are the common threads that should weave through every single thing you do, guiding all of your lessons and your assessments.
And here they are, the whole shebang. Everything your students do, from looking at one source back in Cycle 1 to delivering that big team presentation in Cycle 3, is designed to build mastery in these 6 areas. They really are the why behind every lesson you plan. Okay, so let's bring it all home. The first semester of AP Seminar isn't just a random collection of assignments, it is a carefully built journey. It's designed to take your students and turn them into confident, skilled researchers and communicators, which sets them up for success not just in the spring, but way beyond. Really, when you step back and look at it, this is the whole story of the semester. Your students start with simple inquiry, learning to ask good questions and find good answers. And they end by building and delivering a complex, evidence-based argument as a team. It is a truly awesome transformation to watch.
Look, when you follow this blueprint, you're not just teaching another class. You're giving your students foundational skills they'll use for the rest of their lives. So really, the only question left is the fun one. What incredible, insightful argument will your students create first?